Welcome to Kung Fu Havoc number 2. This is my extra credit sociology paper. Second video, by the way. The first video is a blooper reel. Y'all can go check that out. The reason why it's a blooper reel is there. Okay, so I have 6 questions that I'm going to answer. The video can only be 3 to 10 minutes long. So I'm going to set it between 5 and 7. Alright, as I said in the other video. So I've read the questions in the other video, so I'm going to read the questions again. Then I'm going to read them and answer them, if that makes sense to y'all. So hopefully it will, and hopefully my reading will be profound. Alright, so the first question, question 1, is what is my social class? The second question is what is my sex, gender identity, and gender expression? The third question is what is my race, what is my ethnicity, and what is my immigration status, and my family's immigration status. The fourth question is what other identities are important to who I am? The fifth question is in what ways do these identities put me in the majority, a minority, or the dominant groups? And the sixth and final question is, in what way do these identities result in compounded advantages and some advantages, as well as some disadvantages and compound disadvantages? Alright, so the first question, what is my social class? For my paper, I wrote personally, poor working class. Now, what is my sex? Male. What is my gender identity? Male. What is my sexual expression? I'm pretty sure that I'm straight. Alright, so heterosexual. On the paper, I put I am straight. Alright, so the third question is, what is my race? I put black, because legally, by birth certificate, I am black. What is my ethnicity? I put multicultural because I have more than one race. And then it is, what is my immigration status and my family's immigration status? Well, as far as I know, we're not immigrants. No, I'm pretty sure I'm the descendant of slaves on all 3 brackets. Whites, Native Americans, and blacks. I'm pretty sure that we probably came from slaves. I don't know that much about my white side to even worry about it. As far as my Native American side, we don't know that much about that, and we're just black. And most black Americans are descendants of slaves. So that's pretty much how I feel on that. I'm not sure if I answered that on that paper like that, but it's already submitted, so there's no going back now. Alright, other identities that are important to me, who I am. My mixed identity is the only identity that's important to me. And the reason that is because I've been in this acting business for 20 years, and there don't seem to be a lot of us mixed characters in, and there also don't seem a lot of people writing characters for mixed people. So I had to write my own stuff, henceforth the YouTube channel of Kung Fu Havoc number 1, as well as Kung Fu Havoc number 2. In all my stories, my hero is a mixed person. Now, I have been more accused of being Native American or Mexican or Hawaiian in my actual real world. No one really acknowledges a lot of my black side except for some foreigners are often scared to ask me if I'm black versus whatever else I'm mixed with. Where in America, some Americans have often used my mixedness as a means of working against me versus working for me. From kindergarten to college, I've been a half-breed or a mutt. I like the term mutt, don't like the term half-breed that much because half-breed just sounds straight racist. Mutt gives me more of a little bit of definition. So when people ask me what I am, I say, well, I'm 1,000% mutt. And then I go down the line, Cherokee Indian, black and white, it just depends on how you feel about that, So that would be question 4. Alright, so question 5. What do these identities put me in the minority or the dominant groups? I'm definitely in the minority because very few people who are mixed even stand out, let alone acknowledge their mixedness, and it also depends on their facial structure. To some people, as I said in the other answer, some people think I'm a Mexican. Some people think I'm a Hawaiian. Some people think I'm a Samoan. Some people think that I'm anything other than black. And then some people think that I'm black. And then there are some people who distinctively have no idea what I am, and they generally ask. And again, I go down the line. So that being said, I like to say that I am mixed, I am multicultural, but when I go to apply for a job, I put down black, which shocks the hell out of everybody, but there it is. Alright, so the final question is, in what ways do these identities result in compound advantages and some advantages versus compound disadvantages and disadvantages. Alright, so this is the long part of the video. As I said, throughout my life, being mixed has been more of a disadvantage in some situations and an advantage in others. Now, the disadvantage is, going to apply for a job. When I go to apply for a job, I always mark black. I don't care what anybody says, I mark black. And then when I'm applying for that job and I mark black, generally the person who's in management is going to hire me will often ask me if I'm sure. Because some of them are black and they're darker than me, and they're like, "You sure you're black?" It's like, "Yeah, I know what I am." And it's like, "Okay, because you look like you could be a Pacific Islander or a Native American." And I say, "Well, I'm actually multicultural, but my birth certificate says black. And since Virginia is a right-to-work state, they can fire me for lying on my application, so I check black." Because some places, believe it or not, want to see your birth certificate when you're being hired. I don't know how that works now, but when I was getting jobs in my teens, 20s, and 30s, some people wanted to see my birth certificate. When I went to the military, they wanted to see my birth certificate to make sure that I wasn't lying about my age on my birth certificate. And I joined the military at 37. So trust me when I tell you, I'm setting goals. Now, the only probably true advantage is that I can talk to people of every race and relate to where their understandings are. I can talk to white people and have a decent conversation with them, even white people who are slightly racist, or if not all racist, because most of them don't know that I'm black. So that's a slight advantage to me towards them. It's a disadvantage to me when it comes to trying to make sure they understand that I'm actually a black man. And they're like, "Nah, we don't believe that." And that has happened plenty of times. I once went to Florida with my stepfather or surrogate father, depending on how you want to call it, and we went to a Taste of China. So, in the Taste of China, there's nobody there but Chinese people and a couple of white cats. And the white cats, the role is reversed. All right? So the Chinese people, they actually run everything in Taste of China. The white people were basically maintenance in a position which you would normally see in a place where whites run stuff. That position would either belong to black people or Asian people or minorities of a different ethnicity. Well, in this, it was the exact opposite. It was like rich Chinese people and home class, middle class, working class white people. There were no black people there at all. So this guy who was working there was talking not so becoming about Chinese people. And then the conversation stopped. And I wasn't looking at him or my surrogate father, who happened to be white. I wasn't looking at either one of them at the time until the conversation stopped. So when I looked up, the white guy was looking at me. And I'm like, "What's going on here?" And he goes, "Are you part Chinese?" And I was like, "No, I'm actually part Cherokee Indian." And then they went right back on to the racist rhetoric that was coming out of his mouth. So that was that. So these things have happened to me so often that I'm almost totally, I'm so used to it that it doesn't even bother me anymore. So the compound disadvantage of that is growing up mixed has been not so becoming. From blacks and whites, I've had it more from blacks than whites. And then I had some Native American racial issues. But if I was to count numbers on my hands, I've had this many on my hands and toes on blacks versus me, maybe this many on whites versus me, and 2 incidents with Native Americans. So the horrible disadvantage is that it's very easily to be insulted, by people. As I close up, I also put this in my paper, but I didn't go too deep into it, so I'm going to go into it now. When I was a teenager and I worked at Kegler's Bowling Alley, there was a young white man. I call him young because he's probably about the age that I am now, which is 47, and I was 16. And from 16 to 19, every weekend, for those 3 years, this man refused to call me by my name. He called me Chief every weekend. Every chance he saw me, "Hi, Chief. What's up, Chief? How you doing, Chief?" That was it. And I would beg him from the bottom of my heart to please call me James. And he just refused. He just all out refused. He would only call me Chief. So I would say that the disadvantages, they kind of outweigh the advantages, because knowledge is power, and coming to school, had I known then what I know now, which is why I'm in the process of doing this now that I'm about to be out of school, so it's probably a little too late. But I'm also doing this because as a grandchild of a Native American, I am not part of any Native American nation, which I thought was given to us by birth. But if you're not born on a reservation, it's not given to you by birth. You actually have to apply for it. So I have to take a DNA test and submit it to the Native American Bureau of Indian Affairs. And then I have to put in an application for a nation, providing the Cherokee Nation, since my grandmother on both sides are Cherokee. So, fun fact, now I have to spend a lot of money on a DNA test, and then I have to submit it to the American Bureau of Native American Affairs, and then I have to send it into a Native American nation to request citizenship. And that way I can have some tribal rights. Isn't that fun? Well, I thank you guys for watching. This is Kung Fu Havoc number 2, B, C, and U.